Hello, hello. Welcome to Tech Ascent, the podcast where we dive into the trends, strategies, and success stories that are reshaping the tech landscape as we know it today. I'm your host, Oliver Clingain. I'm also the founder of Ascension, the premier business development partner within tech. Today, we've got a great guest join us, joined by Jason Turnquist, the co-founder and CEO of Fyresite, as well as the co-founder of ProPlaintiff AI. Jason, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Oliver.
It's a pleasure to have you on. Would you mind giving the audience just a brief rundown about what you do and what you do with your two companies?
Yeah, definitely. So I started Fyresite, which is our agency. We primarily work on marketing websites, e-commerce websites with more of a focus on the enterprise level side. We still do startups still, but our bread and butter is Shopify Plus. So Shopify Plus is like the enterprise level version of Shopify, generally big stores that are doing minimum 2 million to 2 million a year. And then we do a lot of custom software development, mobile applications, web applications. And then we've built basically apps in every single vertical within that space. So Internet of Things, on demand, SaaS, health tech, fintech, AI. And we've been doing this since 2009 when I graduated ASU. So I actually graduated in 2010. I started the company with my business partner probably about 7 months before I graduated. So
Very cool. So were you ever in the corporate world, or did you just go school straight to entrepreneurship?
no, I never. So growing up, I worked at a boat shop up in the Bay Area. So I was a mechanic. It's probably where I get a lot of my builder skills from, is just like building things, working on things, tinkering on things. And then, throughout college, I mean, I worked at Starbucks for a period of time on campus. I worked at worked as a junior loan officer up until basically the real estate market crashed in 2007 or 8. And then after that, it was kind of hard for college students to get jobs because the market was very, very rough at that time. And so it was kind of at that point where I realized that I'd always had like a little bit of an entrepreneur, spirit to me. So throughout college, like selling things and making money on the side. And so I kind of saw it as an opportunity to, after taking a computer information systems class through WP Carey at ASU, I kind of liked the idea of building websites. The iPhone had just come out, in 2007, and my generation grew up with Google throughout college. So it was kind of like the known thing that if you wanted to find a business, you would Google them. You wouldn't use Yellow Pages like how it was done previously. And so we started to kind of identify a trend that would become more popular. Businesses that didn't have websites would need websites, and so we started building sites. And then I never really went through like the corporate atmosphere. I mean, I did obviously with Starbucks, but I never did like business corporate.
Sure, 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Nice. I mean, everything happens for a reason. Sounds like you found your path early and stuck with it. But throughout that, Jason, what sort of kind of in the early days getting Fyresite off the ground, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced, do you think?
I mean, we started Fyresite bootstrapped. So, we never raised any capital. It was pretty much just like, hey, we can build your website. And so we started, when I told my dad, who lived up in the Bay Area, that I kind of wanted to do this and like start building sites. He's like, oh, I might have a client for you. So he connected us with the very first paid website we ever built. And he's still a client to this day, actually. And that was our very, very first website. And I think when we build a website, we base it off the number of pages. Well, at the time, we didn't necessarily know how to price a website. So I think we ended up building a 40-page website for $2,500, which nowadays would be, 10 times that price. But I think one of the things that we learned is, we were very scrappy in the very beginning because we didn't have a lot of capital, fresh out of college, didn't have a lot of money. I worked a side job to make enough money while we were building the business, because generally when you build a business, you don't get paid. And me and my business partner didn't pay ourselves for probably the first 3 years. And that's mainly because all the money that we brought in, we reinvested into the company. And so one of the very first roles that we brought in was a designer, because I wasn't necessarily like super good at Photoshop, and so that was like one of the very first roles. And we needed to pay them, and then we also needed to build our own website and build marketing materials and join networking groups and all these different things. And so those first 3 years were definitely like a struggle, and it really teaches you to live below your means, because like I got a marketing side job, and I think at the time it was paying me $1,500, and that was about what I could live on, was 1,500, including rent and food and everything. And so, yeah, it teaches you to be very frugal and smart with your capital. And so that was one of the big, that was something was hard to deal with, and it was a very good learning experience. And ultimately, I think it's really what makes it for a good business owners, because you learn how to be smart with capital, and not just blow it on random things. Like, you're thinking about, what is the ROI of, if I'm if I pay $2,000 for this service, am I going to get $2,000 out of it? And at the time, SEO was big, and so there's all these different techniques. And so, yeah, that's probably one of the hardest things to deal with in the very beginning, is the scrappy side, living below your means. And then on top of that, just like getting your name out there. Marketing was definitely harder then, because Facebook and social media wasn't as big. So it's a lot of in-person networking events, getting yourself out there. You do SEO for your company and whatnot, obviously, everything like that. But um, building a brand is hard, right? And getting people to recognize it. And so you constantly got to be talking about it with family members, with friends, with everywhere you go. It's like, how can I bring up my business in this conversation? And because you never know where a lead can come from, right? Like, I've got leads from somebody standing in a grocery store. So it's that scrappiness of, like, when you first start, it is the most difficult time, but it is also kind of the most essential for, like, creating your entrepreneurial spirit. So
Yeah, it's the foundation.
it's the
And
foundation.
I think that's something that gets a little glamorized nowadays, especially with social media. It's just that entrepreneurship isn't smooth sailing 99% of the time. There's always that kind of the undergrowth that takes years to get off the ground that people don't like to acknowledge.
Yeah, I think as a society, it's like everything is instantaneous gratification. So, you see these people online, and they're saying, "Oh, I started this business, and then a year from now, I'm making $1 million." And I, not to say there aren't businesses that happens. I think that does happen, but I also think that social media is a lot of smoke and mirrors, and people can say whatever they want, and you don't actually know the backstory. And I would I would argue that 99% of businesses, when you start, the first year or two, they're going to be the hardest. They're going to be the most stressful. Um, I mean, each level has its own level of stress and hardness. So I, I have to acknowledge that. But um, yeah, I don't think it's as instantaneous as a lot of people are led to believe.
Yeah, for sure. And I like that concept of each level has its own challenges, kind of different obstacles.
Uh-huh.
Along that journey, what do you think is one of the hardest ones you've had to overcome, and what advice would you share on how to overcome that? Could be anything from hiring, scaling, delegating. I don't know. I'll let you take
Yeah,
over.
no, I think you hit the head on all three of those. They're all very difficult in their own ways. I think for most business owners and entrepreneurs, delegation is probably, from all my time in Vistage and CEO advisory groups and leadership groups, delegation is by far one of the hardest things for people to grasp. And it's very common, because you think that, the business better than anybody else. You know how to handle whatever the situation is better than anyone else. But if you continue to operate in that fashion, what ends up happening is you get too much on your plate and then you burn yourself out. And so delegation is probably one of the biggest things to overcome when you go from like a solopreneur to having 2, 3, or 4 employees. And learning how to delegate. And it's an art. It doesn't happen overnight. Like myself, I had to train myself. It took a lot of time to kind of let go and trust that the people around me could do what they could do and know that they're going to screw up, right? Like if I know this better than anyone else, then I have to have grace with whoever I'm delegating to and help train them and educate them on how I want, which then comes down to communication. And so that's what delegation is a lot. It is not only telling them what to do and then just letting them run with it, but it's more of communicating throughout that process too, of, maybe just little subtle check-ins, right? Not just letting them go the whole thing, and then they get to the end and then you hate everything that they did. I'm more of a fan of like, hey, go do this task, report back to me when you maybe get to this milestone, and then we can talk it through together. And then that way I can identify problems maybe with the direction that they're going at that moment versus they already spent a week on this task and I hate it at the end. And so that's really what delegation is. It's not just like letting them go and hitting the finish line. It's more of, articulating what you want and what the needs are, and then checking in routinely, even for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, to just provide that direction and tell that person, some of the people in my company now, I can fully trust that if I give them a task, like I don't really need to tell them like I can give them very little detail and they can run with it. And then I will be really happy when they bring it back to me. But that takes years of, trial and error and learning. So, like learning reinforcement.
Yeah. It all comes down to just proper guidance. Like you can't just expect everybody to know exactly what you're thinking without providing the information to do so.
That's exactly it, right? Because we all have like a vision in our head when we give someone a task, and you have to realize that everyone is going to have a slightly different version of that vision. And so, yeah, it's helping. It's just helping them like through that process until you're comfortable. Once you get good at delegation, though, it's an art form, and it can severely make your life easier. Severely. So it's something that, everybody needs to work on and practice, especially when you're first starting a company.
For sure. And Jason, kind of switching lanes here a little bit. Obviously, when you kicked off Fyresite, you mentioned that Google was a hot topic. Websites were becoming a hot topic more so. Nowadays, in 2025, AI's become the next technological hot topic. You launched a new company with that.
Yep.
What does that look? What are you seeing in the space? What sort of kind of trends and opportunities made you want to kick off ProPlaintiff?
So one of the beauties of having an agency is people come to you with ideas and they're like, hey, I want to build this thing. And they don't necessarily know how to build it, but they have this idea of what they want to do. And so people pay us to build stuff for them. And so my longtime lawyer that helped me start Fyresite originally 15 years ago, I've worked with him on several different occasions. And he came to us when ChatGPT, probably about 6 months after ChatGPT launched, and said, hey, I want to use this in my practice, but I don't think my paralegals are going to be able to prompt it the way that I need them to prompt it to get the results that they need to get. And so it's going to be very hard for them. Can you make some kind of form where they just upload some information and fill out a form, and then we have some like pre-engineered prompts that will then help get the outputs that we want? I said, yeah, totally. We can do that. So we built a prototype and he was working. He was using it internally for, a few months. And then as he was using it and he kind of had some feedback and we made changes and optimized it, I started realizing like, this is one of those companies that I kind of keep, I keep an eye on like certain ideas that might have actually like a lot of potential. And so this was one of those ideas that once I started thinking about it, I'm like, if he's a PI law firm that needs this tool, all these other PI law firms are going to need something similar. So I went to him and said, hey, if we were to build a SaaS subscription product with what we did, but turned it into that anybody could use it and sign up for it. Would you want to partner on it? And he said, yeah, I would be interested. And I was like, okay, well, let us build it out. We'll build it out. And then once it's ready, we can have a conversation about that. So that's what we did. We took what we prototyped, we turned it into a full SaaS app, which, again, running a software development company for the last 10 years. Well, it's technically 15, but we started doing custom app stuff around probably 2014. That it gave us all the knowledge to be able to do this stuff. So that's what we did, and we launched it in January of 2024 as a public product that anybody could go sign up. And then we had 3 different packages. We tried to make it really transparent with the pricing, because a lot of the other legal tech tools were like, hey, book a demo and then you can sign up. And with all our experience building applications, that's I'm not a fan of that style. And so, yeah, we launched it. We have 70 law firms now that are actively using it. We have a big update that we're going to be launching here in the next few weeks, called V3, that we basically rebuilt it from the ground up over the last 3 months. And it's really just a tool geared for personal injury attorneys so that they can do their jobs better, build demand letters, medical chronologies, summarize documents. And we have, because we have a special agreement with OpenAI, we can pass HIPAA-compliant data into the models so they can pass medical records and whatnot. So, which you can't do with the standard ChatGPT. So yeah, I see it as it's the next thing that's going to be adopted. It's just how fast are you going to adopt it?
Mm-hmm. Right. And another thing there with speed is, sounds like you saw an idea, you executed, put it out in the market. How important is action taking? How important has that been as an entrepreneur throughout your career?
I would say, that's probably something else that you have to learn. And to be a good entrepreneur, you need to be decisive. And with decisiveness, you can see and spot opportunities and make a quick decision. And so, with this app and previous apps that we've partnered with, it was important to be first, to be fast. And I kind of tell my guys nowadays, especially in the software engineering side, because of AI, there's really no moat anymore with building a startup or a software startup. In some industries there are still, but generally speaking, I can go make a Facebook clone or a Reddit clone on Replit or Lovable or Cursor fairly quickly, right? And so, in order for a product to be successful now, I really think it really comes down to speed, right? So getting it out there, especially when you're doing an MVP or a startup, you make a lot of assumptions when you're building it of what people need. And then you get it out in the market, and then you find out that either A, they don't need it as much as you think they do, or B, there's actually one of the other tools that you built is actually more needed. But you don't know that until you start getting feedback. So, yeah, it's important to get it out, get the product out there, get it live, get the feedback, iterate on it, and then update it, and then repeat, right? And if you live by that feedback loop circle, then you can build very, very quickly, and try not to get caught up on the details too much. Obviously enough, you want the product to be good, and you want it to look good, and you want the user experience to be good. But yeah, you don't want to get caught up taking 4 or 5 months just to design it, and then another 4, 5, 6 months to build it, right?
Right.
You should be building much quicker than that nowadays.
Mm-hmm. And Jason, you said you're from the Bay Area, so I'm sure it's a term thrown around there quite often is the first mover advantage. So
yeah, I got that Silicon Valley blood running through me. So
yeah, it's in you.
yeah.
Awesome. And it sounds like you built a great foundation with ProPlaintiff. You've obviously got a long-standing foundation with Fyresite. Looking forward now, Jason, whether it be personal goals, company goals, what's the mission at the moment for you moving forward?
The mission I probably have a few different ones. Number one is Fyresite is on track. It's probably one of the older agencies at this point because we have been around for 15 years. I really want to get into kind of the upper echelon of the enterprise level e-commerce side. So that's one of our goals. Get more up into those, high 8-9 figure companies. And so continue to do that. And then ProPlaintiff, I mean, I see that as like an exponential growth play. And so, our goal, I would love to be at 400 law firms over the next year and a half. I think would be like an ideal target. We are talking about going through possibly an accelerator to raise capital. So, maybe we could throw some gas on the fire there. So business wise, I just want to see those two companies continue to grow. And then personally, I'd probably like to take a vacation here soon.
Understandable. But those are some great goals you've got with the companies. I think, as we've discussed throughout today's conversation, you've obviously laid a great foundation for both of them to keep things moving forward. But before we wrap up, Jason, I do have one last question for you, and it's one of my favorite questions to ask founders at the end of the podcast. If there was one lesson you wish you learned earlier in your career, throughout your entrepreneurial career, that would have helped you kind of accelerate your growth, accelerate your business, what would that one lesson be?
Oh man, one lesson to help me accelerate my entrepreneurial career.
Mm-hmm. That you wish you just learned a little earlier than you did?
Man, that's a really good one. Oh man, I would say be bolder, probably. I wish I was a little, when I first started, I was still kind of like not 100% confident in what I was doing. Like I was confident, but not, I wish I wish I had like maybe set my goals a little bit higher.
Mm.
Be a little bit bolder with the type of clients that I was trying to attain. I think that looking back at it, it was at the time, it's, like, hey, we're just going to move at the rate we move and try and get as many clients as we can. But um, yeah, I think if I were to go back in time, being bolder and a little bit more confident at setting my bar higher, and which ultimately, if you set your bar higher, then you're going to land higher generally. So that would be something that I wish I did. But it's hard as a 23 and 24-year-old, to do that. So hopefully somebody can take that to heart and apply it a little bit earlier than I did.
Yeah, I like it. And Jason, I appreciate you coming on the show, sharing all your insights, sharing about what you guys are doing, what you're seeing in the space. I'll be sure to tag your LinkedIn and Fyresite and ProPlaintiff's websites down in the description for everybody listening. But is there anywhere else you'd like people to connect with you on?
Yeah, just Instagram, Fire Jason is a good one. My LinkedIn is a good one. Those are probably the best.
Perfect. I'll get all that tagged down in the description. But for everybody tuning in, thank you for taking the time to listen, giving us your attention. And Jason, thank you for giving us your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Oliver.